As raindrops hammered against the glass of the observatory dome, the first husk let out a long, drawn-out howl at the foot of the mountain. Aya's fingers paused on the copper skin of the radio's tuning knob, unmoving. Her world was made of sounds and touch, and at this moment those two senses were being torn apart by two distinct noises: the wind and rain outside, and the hungry howls of the living dead, the husks downstairs. Tonight was the full moon, if her father hadn't lied to her. The instant the crimson mist virus broke out, Aya didn't see, but heard, the world's collapse. The world had sounded just as noisy that afternoon 5 years ago. Back then, she could still smell the aroma from the bakery on the corner, hear the clangorous music of the streetcars it passed over the tracks. Then, the music stopped. First, there was the screech of brakes, followed by the screams of the crowd, a sound like fabric being violently ripped apart, quickly spreading through the entire city. Her father rushed into her room, using his rough hands, calloused from soldering countless circuit boards, to clamp tightly over her ears. She couldn't see anything, but she heard it. She heard the sound of breaking glass, the sound of furniture collapsing, heard a kind of wet, collective, inhuman wail. From that day on, silence became the most luxurious thing. Now this Bakelite 7 hand-cranked radio was her only faith. Her father said that on a secret shortwave frequency, there was a place called Beacon 7. Every full moon night they would play a melody that only he and his daughter knew. It was a minor key he had composed for her using 3 white keys and 2 black keys on an old piano. "Listen, Aya." Her father's voice was as dry as sandpaper the last time he stroked her head. "As long as the signal is still there, it means we still have others like us. You have to keep searching, keep listening. If you hear it, it means you're not the last one." Her father had been gone for a year. She had tried 12 times. 12 full moon nights, and all she got was the hiss of static, like an eternal ocean mocking her. She took a deep breath, the air thick with the smell of rust and dust. Her left hand gripped the crank of the generator again, turning it at a steady pace, while the 3 fingers of her right hand rested lightly on the tuning knob. Her ears were her eyes. Each time the knob turned a tiny notch, the internal mechanical structure made an almost imperceptible click. To her, that click was the coordinate of the world. 340 turns past 3 clicks, she recited the mantra her father had taught her. The wind grew stronger, and a loose pane of glass in the dome rattled with a clang, like a crude drummer. The howls downstairs increased in intensity, becoming a duet. They were attracted to the sound. Aya stopped what she was doing, groped along the wall, and picked up a roll of prepared asphalt tape and a piece of wood. Her home was a labyrinth, one she had built over 10 years using touch and memory. The degree of wear on each step, the cracks in each wall were all landmarks in her mind. She walked to the spiral staircase under the dome, the wind pouring in from the gaps overhead, ruffling her hair. She could smell the metallic tang of the rain, and the rotting odor of the husks. They were close. She climbed the cold iron ladder, feeling for the loose pane of glass. The wind buffeted through the gap like a wild beast, trying to snatch the wood from her hands. She braced herself against it, wedging the wood into the window frame, then frantically wrapping it with tape, circle after circle. Her fingertips were cut by the rough edges, but she felt no pain. The noise subsided, but she knew it was only temporary. Back at the radio, her heart was pounding in her chest. She had to be quick. Cranking again, the electricity crackled into the machine. She closed her eyes, immersing her entire mind in the headphones. The static was like the chaos at the beginning of the universe, empty of everything, only the sound of her lonely breathing. Maybe her father had lied to her after all. Maybe she really was the only one left in this world, along with those sound-driven living dead. The thought was like cold poison, seeping into her mind at these times. Hope was a thin thread, stretched to the breaking point after a year of disappointment. She continued to turn the knob, one turn, then another. Sweat trickled from her forehead, mixing with the dust on her face. The husks downstairs began to slam their bodies against the observatory's iron door, making dull, thud, thud sounds, as if death itself was knocking. "Give up," a voice said in her heart. "It's just a fairy tale." No, she gritted her teeth, her fingers trembling slightly from the effort. She remembered her father's hands. Those hands could turn a pile of scrap metal into a miracle that could talk to the world. Those hands were so gentle when teaching her to touch Braille. She couldn't let the hope those hands created turn into a pile of junk in her hands. Just as she was about to turn the last coordinate in her memory, a miracle happened. In the roaring waves of static, she heard a note, a faint, pure piano note, like a bubble rising from the deep sea. It was the first note of that melody. Aya stopped breathing instantly. Ecstasy struck her body like an electric shock. She almost cried out. She wasn't crazy. Her father hadn't lied to her. Far away in some place she didn't know, there were still people alive. They were calling out to their comrades with this secret melody. She frantically sped up the hand crank, the generator emitting a protesting buzz. The signal, clearer. Make it clearer. The piano became clearer. That familiar melody flowed through her mind, dispelling all the fear and loneliness. Every note was full of power, the embers of civilization, proof that humanity had not yet become extinct. She was immersed in this joy of rediscovery, until another sound pierced her ears. It was an extremely faint sound, hidden beneath the piano melody. A click, followed by the whirring sound characteristic of a released spring. That sound. The smile froze on Aya's face. Her blood seemed to congeal instantly. She knew that sound too well. When she was a child, her father had taken apart a music box, letting her touch the delicate gears and cylinders inside, letting her hear how the spring drove the music. It was that sound. Why was there the sound of a music box in the distant radio signal? A terrible thought seized her. Trembling, she reached out, not to touch the radio, but to follow the signal wire connected to the radio all the way along. The wire did not connect to the huge parabolic antenna on the roof, as she had always thought. Its end led to the corner of the studio, the corner full of her father's relics, that she had never carefully examined. She felt a heavy canvas, lifted it, and beneath it was a cold metal box. Her fingertips wandered over the box, touching familiar shapes. A miniature transmitter, the size of her palm, a knob for a timing device, and a small music box embedded in the box. All the wires converged here. The truth pierced her heart like an ice pick. There was no Beacon 7, no survivors, no signal from afar. Everything originated here. This final act of love, carefully crafted by a dying father for his blind daughter. He knew he was dying soon, and he feared she would lose the courage to live alone. So he created this deception, a device that would automatically play their secret melody every full moon night, transmitting it on shortwave, allowing her to capture the most distant hope from the closest range. He gave her a goal that would never disappear, a reason to keep searching forever. In the headphones, the piano music was still playing in a loop. Hearing it now, every note was like a red-hot needle, piercing her soul. What had sustained her for an entire year was not the echo of human civilization, but only the lonely psalm of a music box. The pounding on the door downstairs grew louder and louder, as if to tear the fragile building apart. The wind and rain roared, and the world was full of malice. Aya slowly took off the headphones, letting them hang around her neck. She didn't cry. Her tears had dried up 5 years ago. She just sat quietly, letting that small metal box play the world's most gentle and most cruel lullaby for her alone. She reached out and gently closed the lid of the music box. The music stopped abruptly. Only the sound of the wind, the sound of the rain, and the tireless howls of the husks downstairs remained in the room. The world returned to what it was. Aya sat in the boundless darkness, motionless. She had lived through her father's lie, and now she had to live through this long truth alone. She raised her head, listening intently. The world that had once frightened her, the world filled with noise, now sounded strangely, cruelly peaceful.